Good afternoon. I will call to order the May 8th meeting of the Minneapolis City Planning Commission. My name is Matt Brown. I serve as president of the commission. I'm joined today by Commissioners Kronzer, Magrino, Sweezy, Lupke-Pier, Vreeland, and Rockwell. Our first item of business is to approve the actions from the April 24th meeting. May I have a motion to approve those actions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Our next item of business is to approve the agenda. You can find hard copies of the agenda in the hallway. We'll determine which items we will discuss, which will be continued, and which will be placed on the consent agenda. So starting at the top of the agenda, item 1 is the 205 Park Apartments at 205 Park Avenue. Several applications for a new mixed-use building there. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 1? Seeing no one, we'll put item 1 on consent. Item 2 is a public dog park at 711 South 2nd Street. That is a variance for an increase in the size of a kennel. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on that item? All right, we will discuss item 2. Item 3 is at 501 East Lake Street. That is a rezoning. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 3? Seeing no one, we'll put item 3 on consent. And item 4 is the Marshall Street Apartments at 1301 Marshall Street Northeast and 107 13th Avenue Northeast. Several applications for an apartment building there. We will continue that item to the May 22nd meeting. So if anyone is wishing to speak on that item, it will be considered on May 22nd. So our agenda as amended is as follows. Items 1 and 3 will be on consent. Item 4 will be continued, and we will discuss item 2. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Next, we'll consider the Committee of the Whole consent agenda, and at its April 27th meeting, the Committee of the Whole considered land sales at 695 through 699 Lowry Avenue Northeast, and found that those sales were consistent with the comprehensive plan. I have a motion to find that sale consistent with the comprehensive plan. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Next, may I have a motion to continue item 4 to the May 22nd meeting? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the public hearing portion of the meeting. And at this time, I'll open the public hearing for the items on the consent agenda. Again, that is items 1 and 3. Is anyone wishing to speak on items 1 or 3? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our 1 item for discussion, and that is item 2. And staff is Ms. Smith.
Good evening, Commissioners and President Brown. The application before you is for a variance to exceed the maximum allowed square footage for an accessory dog run, which is 200 square feet. The applicant is proposing 1,536 square feet. The property in question is 711 2nd Street South, which is right next to 205 Park, which is also on your agendas tonight. And that is for a multiple family, a mixed use development. But this would be part of the scope of their project, but it is a separate land use application. So it's on a separate property. So as you can see, this is where the dog park would be located on the property. There is currently a structured parking facility on the site, and this would be just along the western border of that. In between this and the mixed-use building that is proposed, there is going to be a service drive that is technically on this site. The applicant is proposing to have a 6-foot metal fence along the western boundary to provide screening from the residential units. And there would also be additional trees and landscaping materials between the dog run and the residential uses to the west and to the south. So that would provide additional screening in addition to the 6-foot fence. Staff is recommending approval with conditions related to landscaping and also making sure that there are animal waste containers on the site. Please let me know if you have any questions.
All right, are there any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing on this item, and we can have the applicant speak first briefly if they would like. Otherwise, if not, we can move on to other speakers. That's fine. We can let the other speaker go first, and you can come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Randy Manthe. I live at 100 3rd Avenue South. I'm here representing the Downtown Minneapolis Neighborhood Association Land Use Committee. For starters, I'd like to say thank you to the developer, Sherman Associates, for working with us and giving us the opportunity to review and comment and provide feedback on their project. There have been some adjustments made that have made it much more acceptable to the neighborhood, both in terms of some of the overall planning as well as the upcoming future refinement of the details at the street level and within the public realm. What I'd like to speak to tonight specifically relates to the dog run area. Again, there's a literalness to the language of the staff report that I'd just like to better understand here, and that is the comment related to the height of the 6-foot fence. If you look at the other dog parks in the Twin Cities, Loring Park, the two downtown, the one over in the North Loop, all of those fences are 3 feet 6 inches tall. If you were to provide a caged-in area that's 6 feet tall, that now becomes a hazard, becomes an entrapment area. If somebody was in there with their dog and somebody were to come in and accost somebody, there was no way to get out. You basically created an enclosure that just invites a hazardous situation. So with regard to the comment and the condition, the neighborhood preferred to see that number removed and throw it back into the developer's hands. They're going to be working with dog grounds. That we have a meeting with them next week to let them work out the proper design for the height of the fence, the type of the fence, the amount of separation of the bars in the fence, as well as the landscaping. Another thing the neighborhood does not want is this dog run area to be completely enclosed and hidden. We want it to be open and inviting. It's open to the public. We want to encourage the public to see it when people are in it. We want to see and be seen. We want it to be a safe area. In addition to that, we'd also like the developer to install another dog relief area, one at each end of the dog run, so that the dogs don't have to physically go into the dog run area. Dogs that are moving through the neighborhood, we have about 2 million visitors into our neighborhood every year, and many of those people bring their dogs from outside the neighborhood, as well as people within the neighborhood. That provides an opportunity for them to very quickly come off the public sidewalk to the ends of the dog run area and provide a small dog relief area as exists right now on 2nd Street. So with that, I would turn it over to the developer. I've discussed this with him. They don't have an issue with this, but I just want to verify the literalness of the language in the condition, if that condition can be removed in its entirety, and leave that up to the design and coordination of the developer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I might ask the applicant to come forward and please state your name and address for the record, and also just address maybe some of the rationale behind the fence and relief area decisions.
Absolutely. My name is Shane Lefebvre, representing Sherman Associates developer on the project here. Thank you to Randy and the DMNA as a whole. They've been excellent in providing recommendations and meeting with us as we kind of go through the process here. And I believe that the project is definitely better for the collaboration that has happened here. In regards to the dog park specifically and the fence, we are not by any means tied to the 6-foot fence requirement. As Randy mentioned, we do intend to meet with Dog Grounds, local nonprofit who really is the expert on these things. They will be coming to one of our design meetings here in the next couple of weeks, and we intend to really just take their recommendation for height of the fence and what type of fence. And we haven't done a lot of these; they have, and so we intend to take their recommendation. So I agree with Randy's recommendation. Actually, if we leave the height requirement out of the specific language, that's good by us, and we'll go with whatever is recommended to us. We, as to the other recommendation about the dog relief areas, we can certainly do one to the south of the dog run. I would have to verify about to the north if we have room. There's some transformers, existing transformers in the area. I can't commit to that here right on the spot, but certainly on the fence, I fully agree with Randy's comment.
All right. Commissioner Vreeland, did you have a question for the applicant?
At being inside of the dog run, and it has a very beautiful fence that is obviously not 6 feet tall. So again, that kind of scale seems more appropriate, and I appreciate the public comments and your willingness to look at what might be a better, more functional design and more of a sociable urban feel.
Thank you. I agree.
And I do have a question about the water quality. I don't know if this is for staff or for you, but the park board is a dog park, also with crushed granite, and it's very difficult to maintain because of the water quality issues at Lindale Farmstead. So is there any water quality mitigation? I mean, folks will be picking up after their dogs, but they don't pick up everything. And there's dog urine. So is there some thought to water quality?
Didn't, I guess the short answer would be we didn't know that was an issue at another dog park, and so we hadn't made any specific arrangements for water treatments underneath the dog area, but certainly that's something we'll bring up to Dog Grounds when we meet with them and ask them, what their recommendations are.
A little bit more about any water quality issues from the city's point of view?
Commissioner Vreeland, that isn't part of the scope of the current PDR,
Okay.
but it's certainly something that you can talk to the applicant about.
And Mei Ling, I have a more procedural question for you. If we were to make the language in that condition a little bit more general, obviously, I think that would allow the applicant to refine some of the design issues with the dog park. Is that correct?
Certainly, President Brown. I think the purpose, so the applicant has proposed 6 feet, and because a dog run is supposed to be visually screened from residential uses, that's why staff was also in agreement with that condition of approval. So it would just be up to the commission whether you believe it will still be adequately screened through the fencing and the landscaping materials.
All right. Are there any further questions of either staff or the applicant? Commissioner Lupi-Peter.
I have a question for the applicant. Just, I couldn't tell in the plans, but is there any sort of hydration station or pump for water for the dogs available at the dog park, or is it bring your own bowl and water kind of thing? Just curious.
At this point, there's no hydration station. This is technically on city land, and so we, tried to disturb it fairly minimally with piping and whatnot. It gets a little more complicated in terms of easements. So at this point, no, it's kind of, bring your own water.
Thanks.
Okay, are there any further questions? If there are none, I can close the public hearing. And commissioners, we just have the one application before us, the variance on the size. Would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Rockwell?
Sure. I'd like to move to approve the variance application with condition number 2 as is, and with condition number 1 reading through landscaping and a decorative fence as proposed, striking 6 foot tall.
All right. And is there a second? We do have a second. All right. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Lukey here.
I'd like to offer a couple friendly amendments really quickly. So tell me if it's in keeping with it. I agree with your changing to condition number 1, but I'm kind of want Av's proposed comment in keeping with SEPTED principles, so that way they have a balance between screening and eyes on the park to make it safe, and I feel like they can work with their advisor that way. And on the second condition, I'd like to have added an adjacent additional dog relief areas where possible.
All right. Why don't we vote on that amendment? And I can restate that. So the original motion was to basically strike the word 6 foot tall in condition 1. And then the amendment is to accept that and then also add to condition 1 that the landscaping and screening are in keeping with SEPTED principles, also adding a third condition that additional dog relief areas are provided where possible or if possible. All right. And so let's just do a voice vote on those modifications or that amendment. Oh, okay. We have a second. So all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And is there any further discussion on the original motion? Commissioner Rockwell.
Just very briefly, I guess off of Commissioner Lupier's comment, I think the dog park's going to add a lot to public realm. And I understand why we may want screening as well, but I think they're a good focal point and a good social spot. So I think finding that balance is good, proactively good here, and having those eyes in and eyes out while also having some privacy.
And Commissioner Magrino.
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you for including the amenity. I went and walked around downtown East Commons a couple weeks ago, and there's already a whole bunch of dog pee pock marks all over the brand new park, kind of all over the circle. And so I think this is something that we need to continue to be aware of when we are adding new density to an area that doesn't necessarily have a lot of green space. So thank you.
All right. And I think those amendments should provide some flexibility so we can continue to work with the neighborhood group there. Okay, if there is no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Kranzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Freeland?
Aye.
6-0.
All right, and that motion carries. That concludes our discussion on item 2 and also concludes our meeting for today. We have committee of the whole on Thursday. We are adjourned.